Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Connected Wellness Podcast. I am Rachel Ann. I'm here with the lovely Marianne, and we are so passionate about wellness.
Here in this podcast, we look at the ways our physical, emotional, and spiritual health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically so we can live our best lives. We're really excited that you're here with us on the journey. Thank
Yeah.
you and welcome to episode 33 of the
Yes.
podcast.
Welcome, friends. 33. I'm 33 years old, so this is like my birthday podcast. That was weird. This is not my birthday podcast, but it is exciting for the 33
Yeah.
magic.
I mean, it's like the number of episodes is the same as old as you are or something like
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, it's a connection. I feel it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
seeing where I was trying to go with that. Cause I was like,
Yeah.
that it made sense in my brain and then I verbalized it. And that was just not
When we
it.
get to my birthday episode, we don't need to announce it. But
Okay.
yes, I will feel excited inwardly as well.
Okay. That sounds good. Comment below if you can guess which episode number that would be. LOL.
Or don't, so that I don't cry. Okay. Yes, yeah. So, we are getting back to the dimensions of wellness today. So we've
Yes,
talked about a
indeed.
bunch of them already: environmental wellness and financial wellness, and of course, we're always talking about physical and emotional and spiritual wellness. So today we're going to talk about social wellness. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a good one. We haven't really, talked much about this before, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's super important. So, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, what did I say? Social wellness
Social.
today, episode 33. But wellness wins. You want to start us
Yes.
off, Rachel Ann?
Absolutely. So my wellness win is that it didn't start off as a win, but I am making sure it ends as a win. So, this weekend I decided to be so social, y'all. So a lot of today's podcast episode will be like, hey, these are the things that I actually did not do well for my social wellness. One
Mm.
of them was I did too much. I was super social girl. Loved it, but also was really exhausted. And then daylight savings happened, so we lost an hour and I was like, wow, I'm just actively tired for like a few days in a row. This is not great. And so I woke up this morning, had a few things to do. It's not a busy day, but like I have things to do steadily throughout the day with breaks here and there. I have deadlines that I will have to meet as well. And I was like, you know what, Rachel? We're gonna do everything today, but we're gonna do it slowly. We're going to go at a nice slow level of a
Mm.
solid 3. That's what we're going to do. We're going to accomplish everything, but we're going to just do it at a slower pace. So,
Yeah.
I'm reminding myself that yes, I can tune into the needs of my body. So going at a pace that's a little bit slower, more manageable, but also I want to take a nap, but I can't because I literally have some things that I need to do. So
Mm.
that's my wellness win, is acknowledging where I am and saying I can move slower today and still get everything done at a slower pace.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a good balance because, again, sometimes as much as we want to just be like, well, I'm doing nothing because I'm tired and I'm listening to my body and I'm supposed to listen to my body, sometimes that's not feasible, right? So the
Yeah.
balance is like, I can do what I need to do, but just slower than usual, maybe a little bit, easier on myself than I would be otherwise. So, yeah, good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. How about
Yeah.
yours?
So mine happened this morning also in class. I don't even know why I'm calling this a wellness win, but it made me smile, so I'm just going to go with it. So, I teach for a community college. It's definitely like a public situation. But today, just something opened up in class, and my classroom is very, very informal, very relaxed vibe. That's what I love about teaching, is just having like conversations with my students. As much as we have to do the math, we have conversations in between for sure. And
Mm.
something came up, and I just like could not talk about God. You know what I mean? Like something came up and I just like felt like I had, and it was very like, I didn't, preach at them, of course, at all,
Mm.
because I probably would lose my job. But that's not at all what I did. I just, a student mentioned the Fibonacci sequence. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like
Nope.
the sequence of numbers that just happens to be present in so many natural phenomenon. And it's very interesting, like why these same
Mm.
numbers keep getting repeated in natural phenomenon and things like that always make me think of God and how God is, so
Mm.
beautifully like put things together, and he's like a very meticulous designer, and he has a plan for everything. And like I literally was telling myself, stop talking, like don't mention God. Like I was telling myself in my head, but I like couldn't not do it because
Yeah.
that's just the way our classroom runs too, is like we're very open, we just have a good time. And so I
Mm.
was like hesitant, but they were so into it, actually all of them were very receptive. And I told them right away, like, it's fine, you can believe whatever you believe, but this is what I believe, and I
Mhm.
feel like this is such a beautiful example of God, creating everything and being this,
Wow.
designer of our world. And it actually created a nice conversation in the classroom. And at the end of
Wow.
class, one student was asking another student where she goes to church, and they were talking about that. And,
Love
so
that.
yeah, it was just a nice moment. And I was, again, a little bit worried, like, I hope I don't get in trouble. But I also never want to offend anyone. So I was like very careful to like not
Mm.
be like, you need to believe that this is about God or anything. Just like, this is how I see it. And it was well
Yeah.
received. So I'm thankful that it was well received, and it was just like a nice moment in the classroom today.
Wow. I love
Yeah.
that. There's something special about like being in a space that is like secular or like not in a church or spiritual space where you can like mention God and people are like, "Oh yeah, like I know about God too." And you can kind of connect on that level. So like for the students that were like, "Where do you go to church?" and all of that. I think that's really special, and also for you to just be able to share that aspect of yourself. I'm sure the
Hmm.
students felt, and I'm sure the students appreciated hearing that aspect and that side of you. I love that.
Yeah, I
That
have
is
a,
so
a feeling
beautiful.
it's going to come up again in that class for
Mm.
sure. And now I know for those students it's okay, and I know in some classrooms maybe it won't be okay for all the students, but I don't know. I hope it's like a seed, and maybe we can talk about it again, or even one on one, because that's usually when I've talked
Mm.
to students. It's been one on one for whatever reason. So this was kind of the first time it's been like in front of the whole classroom, but it was a
Wow.
small class, but still. But yeah, it was unique. Yeah. It was funny
That's
fighting
so
like that
cool.
internal fight for a second. I was like, maybe just shut your mouth right now and go back to the math, but I really feel like I need to say this for whatever reason, but yeah.
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 Wow. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Marianne. That's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah,
wellness
sure.
win.
I mean, sure. I don't know if it's a win, but like I said, it felt good. So I don't know. But okay, social wellness. So you have already started us off talking about this, that you were mad social, but you said that you did something wrong. So that's an interesting thing that we're going to have to touch on, that there's always some sort of balance, right?
Yes.
Um, but like maybe let's define social wellness just like one sentence. What do you think? Do you got something for
Yeah.
us?
If I had to summarize social wellness, I would say it's an aspect of your wellness that is about the relationships that you have. So it could be romantic, your friendships, your work relationships, your neighborhood relationships, right? Any relationship that you have with another human being. And ideally, we want those relationships to be healthy. We want it to have some sense of connectedness that makes you feel good, that makes you feel heard and seen and safe. So
Hmm.
that's my very broad stroke answer of what social wellness
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Healthy, supportive, nurturing relationships where you feel like you're meaningfully connected. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Mm-hmm.
agree with that. Yeah. So what's interesting about social wellness is it, I think, impacts all three of our like main branches of wellness that we talk about.
Yeah.
I think most obviously emotional wellness. So, when we feel lonely or unsupported, of course, our emotional wellness is low. Spiritual
Mm-hmm.
wellness, I kind of just gave an example of that. But whenever we're around like minded people, they can build us up spiritually. When you have kind of like doubts, or you feel
Mm.
like you're at a spiritual low, when you're connected to the right people in your community, that can help lift you up. But then physically, it's really fascinating. There's so many studies
Mm.
actually about how being connected socially has such a positive impact on your physical health.
Huh.
So, can I
Huh.
tell you one of them?
Yes.
I don't know
Tell
if
me
you
all of
guys
them.
know. You know that I'm definitely a nerd 100%, but I love like research studies. Like
Hmm.
I'm like totally nerd out on that. But this one, what's cool about this one is it was done in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon University, and
Nice.
they did this study that they took the common cold virus and they exposed a bunch of people to the common cold virus that, of course, they knew they were in the study. So, because this, I would be like, no, thank you. I don't want to be exposed. But they exposed a bunch of people to the common cold virus, and they found that the people that had more social connections and more diverse social connections, meaning like you said, friendships, romantic, work,
Mm.
family, acquaintances, community. So like from, different parts of their life, different relationships, were less likely to get sick after being exposed to the common cold. Isn't that fascinating?
What? That is so interesting. Did
Yeah.
they explain the connection?
I mean, I'm sure they did, but there's
Yeah.
many studies that talk about how like people who have more social connections are less likely to have heart disease, they're less likely to have depression, they're
Ah.
less likely to have so many different physical
Mm.
ailments. And so I think the more baseline physically healthier you are, the less likely you are to get the cold, or you just have higher immune function,
Oh.
things like that. Of course, it's probably a correlation. We can't assume causation, but the
Mhm.
correlation is there, and it's a very interesting one, I think. One more
Wow.
science, physical health thing I'm going to mention is that, have you heard of blue zones
Blue zone. No.
in the world? Okay, so blue zones are like the parts of the world where people live to be 100 the most often. So,
Ooh.
like Okinawa, Japan is one of them. I think there's one of the islands of Greece, somewhere in
Mhm.
Italy. Loma Linda, California is the only one in the United States. So, there's like these regions, and they're very highly studied because, scientists want to know like what makes these people
Mm.
healthier on average than everyone else. And a lot of it comes down to lifestyle, food, and exercise, and, not drinking too much, not smoking, things like that, but they always also have in common some social connection, that people in these
Ah.
areas are very like community minded, and into their 70s, 80s, 90s, beyond, they still maintain all these relationships. They see people every day, and they're very community minded. So I think it's just
Mm.
fascinating that it's really been, I don't want to say proven, but it's very clearly, you can see the
Yeah.
connection between being healthy socially and having that impact your physical health, and all the other
Mm.
health that we talked about too.
Wow. I mean, so in my mind, it immediately makes sense, the connection between like mental wellness and social wellness. Because I feel like a lot of like mental health DSM stuff is, when you're isolated, when you're alone, when you're without support, it
Yeah.
exacerbates those symptoms. So I think that immediately like clicked in my brain. But the physical wellness connection is so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And for my friends that are listening to this, they're gonna laugh. I have this like dream. I don't know if I share this dream on the podcast, but this dream where I want to buy an island and I want to move all of my friends to this island and we all just like live next to each other. And we all just like hang out all the time. And if we have kids, all of the kids are running around. If we have dogs, all of the dogs are like hanging out.
Mm.
Like it's just a chill community experience. Islands are really expensive. So I'm also thinking about just like, I've also seen like a tiny house community and I'm like, ooh, that
Mm.
could be like really, really cool. But I say all that to say, one, for my friends, this proves my point, and I'm going to be texting
Mm-hmm.
y'all again about this idea. And two, the idea that being around other people that you have a healthy connection with and a sense of vulnerability and what a healthy social wellness looks like, the fact that it can really make your physical wellness improve in such a way that you're living longer, you're having a life that's enjoyable,
Mm-hmm.
is so like that just tells us that we truly are made for community. Like, yes, you
Absolutely.
can be an introvert, yes, you can be socially awkward, all of that is so real, but that doesn't mean you're not made for community. It just means means that you are made for community, and we just want to make sure, like me as an introvert, we just want to make sure that you get enough alone recharge time.
Mhm.
So we're still made for community, which I think is definitely part of God's design for humanity, that I think honestly we've lost so much, at least
Yeah.
in where we live in the United States. I feel like the collectivism is something that we could really bring back.
Yeah. Yeah, what you said is so important, that yes, we all have different unique social wellness needs, right? And maybe different proportions of social time, alone time, or who we want to be spending more time with, who we feel connected to, but we all of us have social wellness needs. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that what we have to do is figure out for ourselves, what do I need? So if I do think that I'm an
Mm-hmm.
introvert, that doesn't mean I don't need to hang out with people. Like, I do need to spend time with people, but maybe it's very specific people and in specific ways, right? Like, I don't need to go to a giant party, with 40 people and like try and meet new people. Like, that's not for me at all. I kind of hate that, right? But I do have like a couple of really close friends that like I want to have dinner with or spend a few hours talking with, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what meets my needs, right? And makes me feel supported and connected, compared to some people love that party vibe and meeting new people is
Mm-hmm.
like their favorite thing, and that doesn't make them want to go home, and get under the covers. So like
Yeah.
everybody's different, and that's fine. Like, because just because
Yeah.
someone feels good going to the party and you don't, doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It just means you have different type of social needs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. There's a joke that I heard that I feel like is so true, at least for me in my marriage. So if I would love to hear about if this is the case for you, as well, Marianne, where it's like introverts, they're just like in the world, they're chilling, they're hanging out with people, but they're not going outside as much. And then they find that one extrovert, and that extrovert befriends them and takes them to all of the social things. They just
Yeah.
take them along. And then in terms of marriage, this other thing that I heard was the introverts, they marry the extroverts, and it's just like a forever battle of like how many social activities are we gonna have a week. And
Yeah.
it's just, I was talking about this with a friend the other day, and I was like, yeah, for me and my husband is definitely more of an extrovert. God bless him, I love that for him. I'm an ambivert, but lately I've been more on like the introvert side. And I've just come to the conclusion. I was like, hey, beginning of each week, I'm like, what are the social activities we have planned for this week
Hmm.
and also the next few weeks? So I can adjust my schedule accordingly. And then if there's like a lot of events in one week, I'm like, cool. Of these 5 events that you really want me to go to, what are like your top 2 or 3?
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
then we go from there to plan and to say, okay, we can do these ones. For these other 2, I'm going to say no, but instead let's, do XYZ.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say, for the folks who are listening who are introverted and they're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to date and get married. You will find somebody who is a good fit for you, even being an introvert. So don't worry.
And I don't think it's always that one is introverted, one is extroverted. I
Mm.
think Chris and I are both ambiverts, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
I really do think so. As much as I want to say that I'm an introvert, I think that I'm a little bit of both. So yeah, I
Mm.
think we both are. And that, but most of the time we're like, okay, that's enough social time. We need home time. You know what I mean? We need to like to balance it out, and the balance is so important. And that's what I
Mm.
think for our conversation here is like that. We all need to find that correct balance for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and to take inventory, to be like, okay, this is what my social life looks like now, right? And,
Mm.
think about it, write down a few notes, whatever. This is what it looks like now, but this is what I want it to look like. And
Mm.
see kind of where are the gaps. Where do you feel like, either you're doing too much and you feel drained all the time, or you're not doing enough, you're not seeing the right people. Maybe the people you are seeing aren't making you feel supported and connected,
Mm.
right? Because that's real. Like, you could be surrounded by people and not really feel true connection if they're not the right
Mm.
people. So,
Mm.
I think that is could be a place if anyone is like, I don't know how my social wellness is. Like, I'm not really feeling super connected. Like, take a minute, do a little bit of an inventory, and see what needs to change.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up because I don't know. I'll just speak from the I, but from other conversations I've had with people, they have resonated with this. As we get into adulthood, making friends is just really hard.
Mm,
And especially like for me, for example, I moved from one city to another city for graduate school. So I kind of lucked out where a lot of my friends I met in graduate school, and I was there, I moved for a purpose, and that purpose had a social context naturally
hmm.
attached to it. As I started to go to church on my own, I started to meet friends on my own. And so it can be really hard, especially as adults. What we're looking for tends to be less superficial and more
Mm,
like deep and
mm,
thorough and like vulnerability. And it's like, what are the values that we have in common? Because like, yeah, it's cool like if we like go to bars and all of that, but I'm also looking for like a deeper connection, and that usually requires that we spend more time with each other and all of that. So adulting is hard for many reasons, and one of them is because finding friends can be difficult. But I like what you said about having like the depth in the relationships and saying like, okay, what's lacking in my current social wellness, because then I can go out and get it. So like maybe your social wellness is great with your like church community and your, I don't know, the friends that you have that you see like every week, but maybe you want more like professional mentorship, right? That's part of your social wellness. Yes, it's definitely vocational wellness, but it's also your social wellness too, because that is an important relationship that is deep and vulnerable
hmm.
and impactful to you. So it's like, okay, where do I go find a professional community for people who do what I do? So I think that's a really good point that you brought up, to acknowledge the gaps and figure out what does it look like to bridge them.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point about how it's really hard to make friends as adults. So I wanted to brainstorm a little bit. So you mentioned, okay, so grad school, if you're still in grad school or going to grad school, great. Pay attention and try and make friends there. But if you're out of that phase of your life, right, and you've been working at the same place forever, or now it's more likely that you're working from home and you like never see
Mm,
people, so that's just brought on a whole new challenge and for social wellness these past like 4 years. But what are the other ways that you can meet people? You brought up church, which I love that, because that's, and not just church is the only option, but that's just like any community that you have similar values, similar interests,
mm-hmm.
right? So church is of course a great one, but like you could do book club, you could do, if you're into the gym or into specific type of fitness classes, you could meet people there. Any sort of like hobby situation is a good way to
Yep.
meet people, right? A photography class, an art class. There's like, I feel old saying it, but is meetups still a thing? Like you can find meetups
Yeah,
in your
it is.
city for hiking, for, restaurants, for like literally anything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing that I heard about, and this is because maybe I'm not that old, but I know some of my friends have had success with this, is Bumble BFF. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
for
yes.
anyone who doesn't, Bumble is a dating app. Obviously, I know nothing about dating apps. I have no need to know about that. But Bumble's a dating app. But Bumble BFF is like a part of the app that you can like get connected with friends, like literally just to make
Mm-hmm.
friends. It's great if you're moving to a new city or you just feel like your social life needs to be like livened up, right? You want to, meet some new people. And I do know people that have had success meeting friends that way. um
Yeah.
so I think that there are like a lot of options. It feels really hard, to make
Mm-hmm.
friends, but like we just have to like make a little bit of an effort and put ourselves out there. And just like dating, you're probably going to meet some duds, and like that's okay, but like maybe if you um hang in there, like you can make some true connections, it might be worth the
Yeah.
effort. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very real. I think a part of it that an aspect of it that makes it difficult is there's this idea of embarrassment of like, wow, like I'm going out to try to make friends. Are people going to judge me? Is this really weird? Shouldn't I have my friend groups, set in stone by now if I'm like into adulthood? And the answer is no. It is never too late to build new friendships, especially if you're somebody who is moving to a new place. That's kind of a little bit more obvious. But the less obvious ones are like maybe you're somebody that has developed new hobbies. Maybe you're someone who's exploring or discovering themselves. Maybe you're somebody who's on a personal development journey. And so shameless plug. I actually have a workbook on friendships, like how to navigate finding new friends, how to navigate conflict with friends, stuff like that. I'll link it below. But a lot of what you just mentioned of how to find friends is what I recommend, like the Bumble BFF, the meetup, stuff like that. Things that are hobby based and like there's an activity to kind of like help break the ice. And it's easier to meet people when you're like, oh, we both really like knitting. We're knitting together at this knitting club in, I don't know, a cafe. That
Hmm.
can easily bring up conversation because you already have somewhere to start.
Hmm.
So I think that is important to acknowledge. The embarrassment piece, lots of people are actually looking for friends. So the thing that you're looking for, that you think that you're the only one experiencing that, you are definitely not.
Yeah.
And other people who feel like you are also feeling embarrassed too. So secretly, y'all are like, we're all in like the same place
Yeah.
with that. So just know that that is definitely there. And then I think another aspect too that can make it really difficult is letting go of friendships,
Mm.
right? The Bible talks about how there is a season for everything. And we have a lot of pride when we're like, oh, this is like my best friend that I've had since like, I don't know, second grade or something. That's great. But if you've done a lot of changing and evolving and developing and healing and growing in your life, it would make sense logically that some of the friendships that you had in previous seasons of your life, especially when you were like second grade, you may not carry them on to future
Hmm.
seasons in your life, and that's okay. And so I think that's another thing that holds people back, is saying like, well, I actually don't really like this friendship, but I don't want to let it go because I like to be able to say that I've had this BFF since we were in diapers, or I don't want them to be mad at me. And if I, every time I go to my hometown and I see them, I don't want it to be awkward. And so acknowledging the reality of the situation and saying that like I'm not the only one that's looking for friends, and saying what are the things that are holding me back, such as what are the friendships I actually do need to let go of or
Hmm.
put a pause on, or maybe even put boundaries around. And doing that, that opens up space for healthier friendships that are more in alignment with what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And like, you don't have to feel like, oh, well, I didn't just move here. Like, why do I still need to look for friends? Like, I think there's so many reasons. And in the past few
Mm,
years, as a society, there's so many things. So there is the pandemic, right? There was so much isolation. And then there's the changing workforce that so many people now, work from home. And after staying home for so long, like you lose touch with the people you were hanging out with before. People have moved a lot for work
yeah.
reasons, for financial reasons, right? So like there's so many reasons, and like
Mm,
I absolutely agree with you that you might feel awkward about it or embarrassed, but chances are so many people are in the same boat.
yeah.
And the problem too is we just like get used to where we're at. So maybe
Mm,
you have been relatively isolated for these past few years and you're just kind of like, it is what it is. But like this
mm,
conversation is about realizing, hey, maybe it's not good that I'm like
yeah.
this, that this is something that can be
Yeah.
improved. And I just need to kind of go a little bit out of my comfort zone, take a few steps and try and make some changes. But yeah, I love
Mm,
that you have a workbook and I'm excited that you said some of the things that I said. So I feel good about that. That we both agree on those ideas. But yeah, okay, so making friends as adults is hard. Oh, this is what I wanted to talk about. Balance. Again,
mm,
I always want to talk about
mm.
balance because I think a big part about this is not only balancing, like for myself, social time versus alone time. That's a big one that we all have to identify. What is this balance that I need, and just pay attention. Like if you're feeling super
Mm,
drained, like you noticed for yourself, that means I need a little bit more alone time, right? But also balancing like different social responsibilities, different social obligations.
mm.
So like you have like my marriage is technically part of my social wellness. That's a relationship. My family
Yep.
relationships are part of my social wellness, right? My
Mhm.
actual friendships are part of my social wellness. My church community, that's part of my, you know what I mean? So all of these are like individual parts and I need to be able to
Mm,
balance those right? The
Mm,
kind of demand, not demands in a bad way, but the demands on my time and energy of all of these different
mhm,
relationships. And I think that can be out of whack for some people, like maybe your family demands too much time and then you don't have any energy left over for your friends or something like that. So that's something else to think about as you take inventory, and maybe I need to scale
mhm,
back a little bit from this and have a conversation. Hey, Chris, I love spending 24/7 with you. I know that, but I need a girls' night. You know what I mean? I need to like
mhm,
schedule this in once a month or whatever. So like trying to understand what I need, and if you have these good healthy connections, you can make your needs known. I can tell you
mhm,
this is what I need, and I should feel safe telling you this is what I need, whether it's my husband, my friend, my sibling, whatever it is, whoever relationship it
mhm,
is, I should be able to tell them what I need. And if I can't, that's a
mhm,
problem, probably a different conversation. But that's something that you
mhm.
need to extricate yourself from, right? Like, this is not the relationship that's healthy for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just need to not spend as much time in this relationship. I think that the idea of balance is really important when it comes to social wellness because it helps us to combat this like comparison idea that, oh my gosh, like I always have to be around my friends. I always have to be like the top friend who's buying the most gifts and is planning all of the things. It helps you to realize what is actually important, which is being there for your friend. Um, and it also makes me think about when we have things in proper balance, we're more likely to feel healthier, which will make us want to spend more time with other areas of our social wellness and other areas of our wellness in general. Because something that I am thinking about is the importance of having social groups or relationships around values, but specifically values that might be hard to find in today's world. So, as what's an example? As a Christian life coach for women of color, something I talk about a lot with my clients and also just like with my friends is being a single Christian woman. So, for a lot of us Christian people who are not us, because I'm not single, but for a lot of single Christian women, they want to be abstinent, right? Abstinence is really, really great. It's hard to do that though in
Mm-hmm.
2024, especially because that's not for a lot of the culture that we live in, society we live in, that's not the norm. And so having a community where like, yo, like this is a value that we all have and it's actually special because not many people in the mainstream have it, that makes you be more successful in accomplishing that goal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's the same thing with working out. Working out requires that you change your time. You change for a lot of people it's a lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
You're changing your time. You're changing when you wake up. You're changing when you eat. You're changing what you do after work. You're changing what you do before work, right? You have to say no to social obligations for a lot of people. And so having a community of being like, yo, we understand the struggle of wanting to prioritize working out and people being like, but I never see you at happy hour. You have people that can resonate with the difficulty of that shared value that is important
Mm-hmm.
to you. And when you have that, you're more likely to be successful because you have somebody cheering you on in accomplishing that goal or that task. And so when we think about that in conjunction with balance, it helps you to be able to provide enough energy for the different aspects of your life because the social support is boosting your energy. It's boosting your wellness. It's saying, like, yeah, I support you in this journey. And I know it can be really stressful to be abstinent as we're dating, but you have so many people that are doing it with you, and that can give you hope and that can give you the energy that you need to show up for work the next day so that you're not feeling down, you're not
Mm-hmm.
feeling upset and angry at the world. I know that was very long-winded, but that's like one of the ties that I see with like balance and community, but like specific types of community is really, really helpful.
Yeah, because I think these different relationships meet unique needs, and that's why we need diverse social relationships, right? Like, you might have a best friend, and that's great, and that best friend can like meet a whole bunch of needs, but like it's very rare that you're going to have all of these social needs met by one or two people, right? So there are
Yep.
friendships that are more casual, that we just kind of go out together, we have a good time, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that relationship. But then there are
Mm-hmm.
relationships that have more depth, that this is the person you go to when you're really struggling, right? And you know that it's safe
Mm-hmm.
to go to them, like you're talking about here with these shared values. that's super important to have someone that understands what you're going through. So, when you're struggling, they can lift you up and they can be like, hey, here's what I do when I'm struggling with that. And you have that, ability to share. So I think that's why, like, if you're like, well, I have a couple good friends, that's great. But maybe you need like some more different, diverse types of relationships, right? And maybe
Mm-hmm.
like you don't engage in the hobby that you want to engage in because you don't have many people to do it with, right? So that might be a
Mm-hmm.
nice reason to go find someone who's really into rock climbing or, painting or photography or whatever it is, no matter how obscure. I'm trying to think of a really obscure hobby. I don't know.
Hmm. I
Needlepoint.
can't think of.
Yeah, sourdough bread. That's not obscure anymore. But like, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
people are into everything, no matter how
Yeah.
obscure. So if
Yeah.
you are into it, someone else is into it, and you should totally be
Mm-hmm.
friends. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting talking about balance. I'm gonna be honest with you. Can I be honest? This is
Yes.
this is my coaching time now. Okay, so what I'm finding lately for myself, this may be a burnout situation. I don't know. Is that
Mm,
I am finding that I am just almost too tired all of the time for like hanging out. Like I do it anyway, but I feel like a lot of times I do it and I'm like, I kind of don't want to be doing this. Like, and I always have a good time because I
mm,
love my friends, and I love these people in my life, but like, what does that mean?
mm,
Am I more
mm,
introverted than I thought I was, or am I just like tired and overbooked, or like I'm trying to find that balance and I'm having a bit of a hard time, because I don't know where
mm,
it is. What do you think?
mm. If you are my client, I would say the following. One, the fact that you were like, I don't know what it is, it might be because I'm burnt out. That tells me that you have a hunch that you know what the deal is. I'm not sure if I'm just like I have too many social obligations, right? If you're saying that, that tells me that there's a chance that that is it. So your brain will naturally come up with answers to the problems that you have. Usually, it's your brain is onto something. It's not always on point, but it's usually onto something. So I would say those are some things to examine. But the main thing to examine is saying, okay, I noticed in this XYZ social situation, I was a little bit more tired than I thought I would be. What are all the things that happened before, during, and after?
Mhm.
Right? Because it may be, maybe you didn't get enough sleep. Maybe you thought that there was only going to be 5 people there, but it ended up being 50 people there. Maybe you had a stressful meeting with your, I don't know, your boss right beforehand, right? It could be that. Maybe the people that were there, you're like, I actually don't really vibe with y'all like
Mhm.
that. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really want to do this. Maybe you haven't spent a lot of time with your husband and you're like, I'd rather spend more time with my husband right now because I actually miss him. Maybe you are literally tired and you're like, I need to sleep and I haven't gotten enough sleep. There's a lot of reasons that go into it, a lot of potential reasons.
Mhm.
Some research does show that as people get older, they still want to be social, but their energy isn't necessarily coming from social interactions as much. So it doesn't mean that if you're an extrovert now at the age of 33, that by the time you are 63, you're going to all of a sudden become an introvert. It doesn't mean that, but it means that your extroversion may be a little bit less and less as you get older. And that makes sense because the way that we want to spend our time, our values
Mhm.
change. We have more life experiences that tend to show us that I want to spend more of my time doing XYZ instead of socializing. Or I'm realizing a lot of my socializing was for networking, and I actually want to build fruitful relationships
Mhm.
that are in friendships. So that's the main thing, is analyzing and saying, where is the tiredness coming from? For you, because you mentioned this, and also I know you personally, I have a hunch that it might be just like saying yes to a lot of things and you're feeling burnt out.
Mhm.
And so the solution is to say, okay, what are the things that I have to say yes to, but like actually have to say yes to? Right. And what are the things that I feel like I have to say yes to, but I actually can say no to? And then what is making it difficult to say no to those things? And then processing and analyzing that.
Mhm.
For some people, it's people pleasing. For some people, it's FOMO. For some people, it's They just don't want to let go of a relationship. So they're like, if I always say yes to this person, this relationship will get better and it'll
Mm-hmm.
always be around, right? There's usually something a little bit more complex to it. So I'm not your life coach, but if I were, those are some
Some
of the
stuff to
responses
think
that I would
about.
have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like someone's going to be able to relate. And I think it's funny, but also sad. I realized that if I was going to write an autobiography right now at this stage in my life, the title would be I really don't want to, but I feel like I should. Like, so I think that's very
Mm-hmm.
telling. And I should probably spend some time, contemplating that and introspecting on that for sure. But yeah, I think that probably
Mm-hmm.
answers all of the questions you just posed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, you are not the only one who experiences
Yeah,
stuff like
I'm
this. It's
sure.
really hard. So that's very real. Happy introspecting. Feel free to let us know how it goes. It could be a podcast
Oh
episode.
geez, yeah, like literally every episode about my problems here. Okay. Okay. So, because we are running short on time, I just want to
Mm,
mention what I am getting a bit as a takeaway. We haven't really said this yet, but I think that if we want to develop better relationships, we need to be more intentional, right? And I think that that can look really very small. So like instead of the very basic, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, good. How are you? If you want to develop
mm,
a more meaningful relationship with someone, maybe like actually see how they're doing. Maybe have a conversation that is not how are you? Fine, thanks. How are you? Right? Like something like, hey, what made you smile today, right? Or what was the highlight of your weekend, if it's something like
mm,
talking about your weekend or whatever. So just like these little intentional ways of connecting, I think we can
mm.
I personally can do better. Let's leave it at I can do better. So I would like to think about that.
I love that takeaway. I think a lot of people would also have a similar takeaway. So I think it's okay to say we in that situation. Also, for me, I'm like, I would like to do that more. I think a takeaway for me, which is interesting, it's related to what you just brought up, where we did like a mini coaching session for Marianne. Because I was analyzing this past weekend and I was like, okay, I was really, really tired. What is making me really tired? What are the changes that I need to do? Why did I say yes to so many things? That's kind of strange for me. And this one of the solutions I gave you, which was analyzing my time and all of that, I realized that I created all of these social events. I just kind of put it on my calendar and I didn't really realize it was like building up.
Hmm.
And so I think a takeaway for me is to be more mindful and proactive and looking at my calendar. So instead of saying like, yeah, I can totally do that and then like put it on, first I'm looking at my calendar and I'm saying, oh, well, if I have something right before, realistically, I do have the time, but I should not be spending my time planning or having another social event.
Hmm.
So for me, it was just a case of like I let my calendar get away from me.
Yeah.
And so my takeaway in trying to bring that balance in social wellness in my life is saying, okay, what does my calendar say and what can I realistically add or even like sometimes take away?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we've talked before about the pause, like pause before responding. You don't have to answer right away
Yeah.
to yes, I can do this or not. Like pause, take a look at your calendar, really think about how is this going to impact me um, on the Monday after daylight savings time. I wish we had thought about that too before this weekend, but no. Yeah, maybe we just need to
That's
not
where
have
we
daylight
are.
savings, but that's another conversation. Yeah.
I have signed petitions for this. Last I knew, it was in one of the courts and maybe was going to move forward. But I think farmers, I don't know if it actually does help farmers because I've heard that farmers actually don't really care about it that
Yeah.
much. But I don't know. I say all that to say if it doesn't negatively impact farmers and their very important careers that I am very
Hmm.
appreciative of as somebody that eats food, I would love to get rid of daylight savings time.
I mean, I don't know, but
Confession.
I have a
I would love
feeling
it.
that since, the invention of electricity, it's not quite as a big deal for them. But that's just my hunch. I could be wrong. Yeah. If
You
anyone
know,
knows
I
better about farmers' feelings on daylight savings, please enlighten us. I'm willing to hear.
yes.
Yeah.
Please put it in the comments below along with your thoughts about this episode, right? What does social wellness look like for you? What are the gaps you're noticing in your life? And so we would love to hear that from y'all about what are the takeaways that you have and what it is you want to be incorporating. If you want to reach out to us with any topic ideas or questions or just comments and nice things, you can definitely do that. We would love to hear all of that. You can find us on Instagram at Connected Wellness Podcast. If you want to reach out to me specifically, you can find me on Instagram at Real with Rachel Ann. If you want to reach out to Marianne specifically, you can find her on Instagram at Wabasaba. You can email us if that's more your vibe. Our email is connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. If Facebook is your vibe, you'll find us there too at Connected Wellness Podcast. So we are so excited to hear from y'all about what your social wellness journey is like. What are the gaps that you're seeing? What do you want to be doing differently? And yeah, I'll pass it over to Marianne for our goodbye for the episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, be well.
Yes, be well, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.